Okay. Ah, so it's Gavin and Doug. I've waited a minute. I'll just wait to the top of the hour and then I will kick off. Please note that this webinar is being recorded for those people who would want to have a look at it later. So if you have any objection to being on a meeting that's being recorded, this is your chance to leave. In that case, I will get into the presentation. So this is quite a short presentation. It's probably only going to last 10 minutes, much shorter than ones I normally do. If you've come along to listen to me prattling on for 40 minutes like I usually do so you can have a nap, I'm afraid you're going to be out of luck today. So yeah, what we're looking at today is assessing the quality of your intranet. So in this webinar, what we're going to cover, well, first of all, why should I care? Yeah, it's a question that you should ask about any presentation or any webinar. The presenter should always tell you why you should care about something. Otherwise, what's the point of any of us being here? I'm going to talk about what the issues are associated with trying to assess the quality of an intranet. And once you're over those issues, how does it work? And a summary. So I'm only expecting this to last a few minutes. What I will do is I will open up for questions at the end, but also any questions you can type in on the chat and I will try and answer those as well. So why should you care? Well, the intranets these days, all the intranets I've come across anyway, they're just websites. Everything is presented through a web browser. It uses all the same technologies. And as I'm sure a lot of you on this webinar know, Sitemorse is very good at assessing the quality and testing websites. So testing someone's intranet is a very similar sort of process. It uses the same technology. One of the things I have noticed about a lot of the intranets that I've looked at, particularly from a Sitemorse point of view, when we've got a client where we use Sitemorse to assess their intranets, is there seem to be far more broken links than you would ever see on a public website. It's probably because there are a lot of documents in there. Intranets tend to contain a lot more documents. They tend to get moved around a lot, and nobody really takes the trouble to update the links, or maybe they don't have something like Sitemorse looking through their intranet to find these things, or maybe it's just not as public, so they don't care as much. But what I have done, how I found in my experience of working for quite a few different companies, is I've had experiences of intranets as a user, and some of these experiences have been quite reasonable. I've been able to find the stuff I needed to get my job done, and other companies I've worked for, their intranet has been absolutely appalling, where suddenly I've spent the entire morning looking for some information that really should have been at my fingertips, and it really just ruins productivity. So it's interesting that a lot of people are very obsessed with the quality of their public website, but in terms of productivity, they don't seem to be that bothered really about the quality of their own internal intranets. And the final part on this, and that's sort of changed over the last 10 years that I've been looking at the accessibility of websites. 10 years ago, often the answer would be, this is an internal system. We don't need to worry too much about the accessibility. But that really doesn't apply these days. People are suing organizations because their website is not accessible and they're being discriminated against. But internally, it's maybe often a much more serious problem because you can't turn around to an employee and say, I'm sorry, you can't work here because your eyesight's not good enough and our intranet discriminates against you. That won't work. You're going to get someone worried from HR running down the corridor and probably a nasty letter from a union representative. So that's where you should care about testing your intranet. It's not just a big pile of documents that that people shove in one corner of an internal website and hope for the best. You should really care about the quality of your intranet. But of course, as we said, the next slide on this is what are the issues? And there's really only one. It is security. So this is it. All your intranet documents that only should be seen by people within the organization are all nicely hidden behind a firewall, which is where they should be, to be honest. And of course, Sitemorse isn't. Sitemorse is an external service. So for Sitemorse or any other service that's going to have a look through your intranet from the outside world, we need to be able to get through your firewall to access the content so that we can then assess it all. And often, in fact, always, we and you would have to coordinate with your security department to enable that. There's no other way of doing it without their assistance. So how we do that? How does it work? Well, when it works very well. And there are various different ways that you can do this, ranging from something that's quite simple right through to possibly even things that just won't work. So the easiest way to do this, and probably the most popular amongst the Sitemorse clients who do get us to assess the quality of their intranet, is to just whitelist our IP addresses. That's nice and easy because it's done once by the security team, and then you just sort of leave it. It works, and it doesn't stop working. It never breaks or anything, and so it's very easy. You don't have to keep maintaining it or anything. To go a little bit further along, then sometimes it's possible to access this information using passwords. So if it's a sort of basic authentication, that's sort of easy enough. We can include that in all the traffic and then get through to have a look at your content. But say, for example, it's something like a real login form where you have to set up a fake user of your intranet so that we can come in and have a look at that. That's sometimes a little bit more difficult because there's more things we need to configure at our end. And of course, it might be that you've got something like a password change policy. So it works for a little while, and then in 3 months' time, it all stops working, and we've got to go in and reconfigure it all again. Right up to the things such as things like two-factor authentication. I mean, depending on what that is, might mean that it's not something we can configure at all. It all depends. In short, though, typically what happens when we engage in one of these projects is the first part of it is Sitemorse spends a little bit of time talking to your security department to actually get the thing working, so at least we can assess half a dozen pages to show that we can actually get to your content. And once that happens, then we're on to part 2, which is often a longer part of the engagement and the project on that. And that is arranging the information, access to the information and configuration, including exclusions and so on. So once we get access to your information, then often clients want to create several different reports that target different groups of people who are responsible for your intranet content. So, for example, all the content in the HR section of your intranet is most likely updated by the HR department. Similarly, you have for sales, marketing, consulting, finance, etc. Or maybe if you're a local authority, it's recreation, social services, and parking. But the idea of that is you would probably create multiple reports just looking at an individual part of the intranet. And the people responsible for making sure that all that content is in order would be the people that have access to that report. So typically, we spend a lot of time really sort of iterating with this and poking around with the reports so that only the right people get the right stuff. So for example, you might define a Sitemorse report that's just for the people in sales, but it also also includes a little bit of the consulting section for selling consulting. But it excludes a part of the sales and marketing section because marketing look after that. So often I mean, this takes several weeks to go around deciding what should go in the report, what shouldn't go in the report, as well as feedback from your individual stakeholders who are actually going to be the people responsible for updating this information. And part 3 is it's a little bit of a cheeky way of playing these people off against each other. So say, for example, you've got 5 or 6 different departments in your intranet, all who are responsible for updating their content or maintaining that content within their own bit of the intranet. You can turn that into sort of an index. So those of you who are familiar with Sitemorse will know the Sitemorse index, where we go and we look at a section, a segment, such as local authorities or London listed companies or education or so on. And we create a little table of results ordered by the quality score. And there's an example on the screenshot on the right hand side. You can do the same. You can create a little index of your own for the various parts of your intranet. So you can know, for example, that, oh, yeah, the HR made great improvements over this last month, but oh dear, what are the finance people doing? And create this sort of little table in there. Incidentally, the names are pixelated out to protect the guilty. But sometimes things like that, you know, gamification, if you want, sometimes has an added incentive to make sure that people are updating their content and keeping everything in a good order. There you go. I told you this was going to be a short presentation. So in summary, your intranet can be tested just like a website, and Sitemorse is already very good at testing things that look just like a website. So it makes sense to extend the facilities of Sitemorse to go off and test your intranet. The main issue is always security, and so we would typically spend some time with you making sure that that works, or even talking to you to decide that maybe it can't work, and maybe there's no way that Sitemorse could do this. But we actually spend the time to do that before we even engaged in any of this. And there are many ways of varying difficulty into which all of this can be achieved, from fairly easy right through to possibly impossible to achieve at all. So sorry for those who wanted a little nap during my presentation. I have finished already. What I will do is I will go look at the chat to see if we've got any questions in there. Also, do feel free to unmute yourself. You can ask questions as well. And so, yeah, off you go. No questions? Ah, here we go. Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely welcome. And of course, we are recording this. So if you're just too shy to ask questions, then you know our email addresses, you know our contact details, contact us, and we can start looking into this or answer any of the questions that you're happy to actually talk about whilst we're being recorded. As we don't seem to be getting many questions, what I'm actually going to do is I will hang on another couple of minutes, and then if there are any questions, and if there aren't any for the next couple of minutes, I will end this webinar, and hopefully whoever is editing the recording can edit out 2 minutes of silence. And it looks like everyone has left the chat, so no one needs to edit out anything other than me saying, and everybody seems to have left the chat. So There we go. That's the end of this one.